Is Pluto a planet or not? By Gabrielle Bonk. So for the background of the Pluto argument, there's been many stories on the news and everything about Pluto as if it should be a planet or if it should not. Pluto was seen as a misfit among the other planets, and many people question Pluto's reasoning for being a planet. Once the discovery finished about Pluto being a planet or not, many people were enraged about the findings because many people believe that Pluto should still be a planet. No one has visited Pluto, and the New Horizons experiment did go to Pluto, and it took 9.5 years to get there. So, an investigation took place going through different observations people had made about Pluto in order to gain more information to decide if Pluto qualified for a planet or not. So, the Pluto Files, which is a documentary on PBS, covers different experiments done which um, help to further knowledge of Pluto. So, one of them built a two-scale model of the solar system, and different objects were used to represent the sun and each planet. The experiment was set up on a football field, so they were spread out as if they would be to scale in the solar system. So the sun was modeled by an 8-foot balloon, and the Earth was modeled by a marble, and the Earth is 6 times that of Pluto. Jupiter was a ball, and it's 62 times that of Pluto. And Uranus was a bocce ball and was 22 times that of Pluto. And Pluto was represented by a small silver ball, which didn't even compare to the sizes of the other models of the planets. Pluto has a 1,500-mile diameter, which is the same size as if you were to travel from California to Kansas. Those are just some facts that were discovered throughout this experiment done in the Pluto Files. The next investigation covered on the documentary was the Lowell investigation. Lowell was a scientist that was looking for life on Mars, and while he was doing his investigations, he saw something in the way of Neptune's orbit, and he named it Planet X. It came out that this was going to be a new planet, and an English schoolgirl actually wrote to Lowell with the suggestion that Planet X be named Pluto, which was named after the Roman god of the underworld. And then the symbol was then developed for Pluto, which was an interlocking P and L, meant to be named and designed after Lowell, who discovered Planet X, soon to be Pluto. The Kuiper Belt was discovered by a team of scientists, one of them being Jane Liu, and they were searching to find the ends of the solar system. And finally, in 1992, after 5 years of their discovery, they found objects moving around Pluto, which showed that Pluto was not alone. They named the objects the Kuiper Belt, and they soon discovered that these were leftover objects from the solar system. Because 4 billion years ago, when the solar system was formed, big particles stuck together which formed the planets, but the leftover pieces went to a further out region of the solar system, and that was a icy region that was removed from the planets. It's argued that Pluto is part of the Kuiper Belt, and if it was part of this Kuiper Belt, then it would be the biggest object in that region. And the argument for Pluto being part of the Kuiper Belt is that Pluto does have an icy atmosphere, as do the other planets and objects in that region. The documentary also discusses dwarf planets. Many scientists and astronomers argue that Pluto is actually one of the dwarf planets. Dwarf planets are not part of the Kuiper Belt. Um, there are a lot of objects that classify to be dwarf planets. Usually the planets are rocky and icy, and they are um, like planets, have like characteristics, however, they're miniature. In the Plutophiles, they actually compare this to chihuahuas and how they are small, but they have the same qualities as dogs, as Pluto is smaller than a planet like Earth. However, it still has the same characteristics as it. It is believed that dwarf planets were actually formed somewhere else and traveled to where they are today. They are millions of miles apart from one another, which prevents them from colliding with each other, which then makes them grow. So there are specific arguments for Pluto being a planet, such as its round and textured surface. It does have 3 moons, one of them being Charon, which is about the same size of Pluto. It's Pluto's biggest moon and most known. The temperature of Pluto is minus 300 degrees, and it is studied that it may have an atmosphere as well. The ancient Greek definition of a planet states that planets should be round and go around the sun, which Pluto does this. And many people argue that Pluto is not a planet because its orbit is so slow. However, Pluto's orbit is only slow because it is much farther away from the sun than the other planets. So it is orbiting the sun, however, at a slower pace just because of the distance. Pluto is also not as small as everyone believes it to be. It is only known to be so tiny in scale to the other planets. And many people say that Pluto is just a comet. However, it does not have any comet-like characteristics, only those of a planet. The arguments against Pluto being a planet are its size. It is studied to be much smaller than all the other planets, and it also has a much smaller mass than other planets. It has a slow-moving orbit around the sun, significantly slower than other planets, and it has the most tipped orbit, that of negative 17 degrees. And it's elliptical shaped, not round, and while it does orbit the sun, it crosses the orbit of another planet. And for a planet to classify as a planet, it must have its own orbit. The ancient Greek definition of Pluto is old and would classify too many objects as planets. So if we continue to go by the ancient Greek definition of Pluto, then most of the objects in the solar system would classify as planets, and then there would be too many. So a new definition of planet was developed, and that is a planet must clear the neighborhood around its orbit. And Pluto does not, because as seen in the Lowell investigation, Pluto actually interferes with Neptune's orbit. So in conclusion, the argument of Pluto being a planet or not is ongoing. Many scientists and astronomers still try to find different information for Pluto and studying the planet itself. Some believe that Pluto is part of the Kuiper Belt, and some believe Pluto is a planet, that either being a full-size planet or a dwarf planet, and some believe that it is part of the Kuiper Belt and a planet as well. So many investigations prove different classifications for Pluto clearly, and they all make sense.